Good.
Okay, the video cut off, and so we're back. Bottom of the ninth inning. My dad is telling us one of his most important moments. Keep going, Dad.
One of my memorable moments. Yes, it was the bottom of the ninth inning, and things sort of fell apart on us. Things were not going well. The other team had scored 4 runs, and we had gotten no outs whatsoever. And the other team proceeded to load the bases, runners on every base, first, second, and third. And about this time, I noticed my dad up in the stands, and he got up and left, which I can talk about later if need be. But anyway, he got up and left. He foresaw what was about to happen and did not want to hang around for, I guess, all the bad news, especially since we had lost our previous 2 games in similar fashion, and if we had won either of those games, we would have at least tied for the championship or won the championship without any. We had been in first place. We lost those 2 games, and we fell into second place as a result. And he had stayed through both of those games and watched it all the way through the end. But anyway, the other team scored 4 runs, and it loaded the bases. And I was still pitching at the time. So the next batter was up, and I don't remember what the count was. But anyway, he hit the ball. It was a grounder to the shortstop. And the shortstop was my younger brother, who was 3 years younger than me. I was a senior, and he was 3 years younger than me. And at that point, the thought in my mind was, this is going to blow it. He's going to make the big critical mistake, probably miss the ground ball, roll through his legs or something. 2 runs would score, and the game would be over. Or he would catch the ball and either throw it away or throw it to the wrong base or something along those lines. Much to my surprise, he caught the ground ball cleanly, and he correctly threw it to home to get the runner on third base out, and which was amazing to me that he knew the play, knew what to do, and we got that first out. We then got 2 subsequent outs after that. I don't remember how. But we did win that game 5-4, and we had tied for the league championship. And then later we played the playoff game, and that game was not quite as exciting. We won that game in 9 innings, 11-4, and I got the opportunity to pitch in that game as well. So we won the championship, and just to show you if I can. This is the baseball. It says Indians 5, Tigers 4, 6 August 1969. That was the ball I was pitching back in 1969, which I've kept ever since then.
August 6th.
1969.
And so as I am taking notes while he's talking to me, I'm not writing in complete sentences. I'm just writing with little bullets, and then after we're done talking, I'll probably go back and I'll probably listen to the interview again and stretch some of these sentences out and kind of reorganize it so that my notes make more sense to me. But right now I'm just writing some of the most important words down that I hear the person that I'm interviewing tell me. So now we're going to move on to the second question. And the second question is, who are the most influential people from your early childhood? Who are the people that stand out to you?
Well, let me mention a couple. First of all, let me mention my dad. He certainly stood out significantly in a very positive way. He was sort of my mentor and role model as I was growing up. He was the one who taught us right from wrong. And there were 5 of us, 5 kids in the family, and it was very clear in our minds what was wrong because our dad made it very clear to us. And he helped us correct those things that were wrong in order to make them right. And he helped me a lot throughout my maturing years, so to speak. He did apologize profusely for leaving that game early. And the championship game, he did not leave. He stayed for the whole thing. Of course, we were well ahead and had the game well in hand throughout. But nonetheless, I'll give you one example of how he helped me. When I was a senior in high school, came home one day and he and I were talking, and I said, Dad, I think after I graduate, I am going to enlist in the Army and follow in your footsteps, because he had been an enlisted soldier, and at that point he had been in the Army for about 26 years. So that's what I told him I was probably going to do. And he looked at me square in the eyes and he says, "No, I don't think so. I don't think you're going to do that. I think you're going to go to college. I think you're going to go through ROTC. You're going to get a commission, and then you can go in the Army as a second lieutenant. And as an officer in the Army, you'll never have to work because the enlisted folks do all the work," was a point that he was making. But the bigger point he was making was that he had bigger things in mind for my career, my future, than he really had for himself. Back when he had joined the Army in 1944, I think, 44 or 45, quite some time earlier. So my dad was one of those influential people in my lives. The other one, I guess, that comes to mind would be my high school basketball coach. He was another one of my mentors. He was sort of a father figure as well. I played for him for 3 years, and he really helped me along as I was going through a lot of experiences those last 3 years of high school. I can remember my senior year, he had made me the captain of the basketball team, and as one of the biggest players on the team, at 6 foot, I was still one of the biggest players on the team. He also made me the point guard, because he told me after practice one day that I was the only kid on the team who could dribble. So he made me the point guard. One thing I can remember him having trust and confidence in me, we played one game that actually went to triple overtime, and I can remember that I played every minute of that game. He had left me in the game for the full regulation time and all 3 overtimes, and at the end of that game, I was more tired than I had ever been in my life. But anyway, he had that trust in me, and I valued that, and I appreciated him for that. Also, just to let you know, 3 overtimes, and the final score was 39-37. So you can tell we weren't a real great team to begin with, scoring only 39 points in a triple overtime game. But nonetheless, he obviously had a significant impact on my development.
So whenever you think back to your childhood, what are some dreams or goals that you had? Like, what did you want to be whenever you grew up, whenever you were a kid?
It was not necessarily to be in the Army until I was a senior in high school, and it looked pretty obvious that I needed to think about doing something after I graduated. But even growing up, my thought was not to be in the Army. I thought I was an athlete. My favorite sport was baseball. I thought I was really, really good at baseball. I mean, all throughout my school age years when I played baseball, I always seemed to be one of the better players. I know that sounds conceited, but in many cases, the coach made me the team captain. In almost every case, I was selected for the All-Star game all the way through high school. So conceited and full of myself as a senior, seeing all my successes in the past and whatnot, I thought for sure I was going to be a professional baseball player someday. So I graduated high school, came to the University of Arkansas, went out for the baseball team, and when I walked on the field, I realized everybody on the team had been a team captain throughout their public school period. Everybody on the team had made the all-star teams. I mean, that's the kind of kids that go out for college baseball teams, or any sport, as a matter of fact. It's the best of the best, the cream of the crop. And I realized very early in my freshman year at the University of Arkansas that I was probably one of the worst kids on the team. I was not nearly as good as the other kids who were the starting players and the ones who got on the traveling squad, who got to play, or at least got to go to the away games, even if they didn't get a play. So I realized that as a freshman in college that I should probably look at other opportunities, and remembering back what my dad had told me and the fact that I was in ROTC, which is the commissioning program for the military at the University of Arkansas, that probably that was where my future laid, rather than becoming the next Mickey Mantle, which was my idea, that I would be the next Mickey Mantle. Some of you maybe never heard of Mickey Mantle. It would be the same as today saying, I'm going to be the next, I think it's Mike Trout, who plays for the California Angels, or the next Zion Williamson, who just graduated Duke and became, or Steph Curry. I'm going to be the next Steph Curry, the big-time basketball player. Zion Williamson, another basketball player, or somebody like Patrick Mahomes, quarterback.
Hold on, I'm
Yes.
gonna pause you because
Yes.
there's stuff I don't understand. So then you just ask more questions if there's stuff you don't understand. You tried
Go ahead.
out for the University of Arkansas baseball team
Yes.
and you played on it.
No. That's when I learned that, hey, all these kids are a lot better than I am. And
Did you-
my opportunity would not,
So how long did you tried out and just didn't make it?
yes.
How long were the tryouts? I've never heard this story before.
I don't,
like a week or like,
no, it was just a couple of days.
okay.
It was like all the walk-ons. Matter of fact,
Gotcha.
everybody back then might have been a walk-on. I'm not sure. But anyway,
Learn something new every day.
it didn't last very long.
Okay, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to look through some of those other questions from StoryCorps, and I'm going to ask just kind of some easy, simple questions.
I like easy questions.
Awesome. So when and where were you born?
When?
Yes.
I was born on August 25th in 1952, when my parents were stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, which is right in the center of Kansas, almost in the middle of nowhere. But it was at Fort Riley, Kansas.
Okay, so you said that they were stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas.
Yes.
And so tell me, because your father was in the Army, like my father was in the Army, tell me some of the places that you moved to. So you're born in Kansas, and then where did you guys go?
Soon thereafter, I think we moved to Fort Hood, Fort Hood, Texas, which is right in the center of Texas, for just a few years, and then we moved to Germany, a place called Nuremberg, Germany, where my dad was stationed. Some of you might have heard about the Nuremberg trials that occurred after World War II. That's the city that we were stationed in at the time.
How long did y'all live there?
3 years, and I was in that's like the preschool years. I hadn't yet, preschool and maybe went to kindergarten there in Germany.
And then where'd you go?
After Germany, we moved back to Fort Hood. Fort Hood, Texas is very close to where my mother was born, where my dad met my mother and got married. So they always tried to get back to Fort Hood, Texas whenever they could. So anyway, we moved back to Fort Hood, Texas, and I lived in a town called Coppers Cove in Texas, which was about maybe 12 to 15 miles west of Fort Hood, which is where my dad was stationed. And that's where we caught that bunny rabbit. That's where we had that big field back behind our backyard. And that's where we caught the bunny rabbit. And speaking of that, as I thought about it, since we turned the video off, I'm pretty sure we named that bunny Jack for Jackrabbit, even though it wasn't really a jackrabbit. But we didn't name it Bunny. I think my older sister named it Jack. But nonetheless, okay?
We won't tell Jack and Will. Will would be jealous.
Okay, so I was
long
there,
did you live there?
first, second grade, and the first part of third grade. And at that time, my dad got stationed back in Germany, and he went ahead of us to Germany. And my mom took the 5 kids, and we moved to a place called Belton, Texas, Belton, Belton, Texas, which is about the other direction on the east side of Fort Hood, but that's where my mother's parents lived, my grandparents. And she wanted to be close to them because my dad had already gone to Germany ahead of us. And so I went to 2 or 3 months of third grade in in Belton, Texas. And then after that, we got travel orders to join my dad in Germany. And this time we were stationed at a place called Augsburg, Germany, which is, by the way, where my baseball career started when I was in the 4th grade. But anyway, I finished 3rd grade in Augsburg, and then also went to the 4th and 5th grade in Augsburg, Germany. And in between 5th grade and 6th grade, we moved to Fort Smith because my dad got stationed at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. So we moved to Fort Smith. My dad was at Fort Chaffee. There I was in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And after that, my dad got orders. Let me think. My dad got orders to go to Vietnam at the end of my 8th grade year. It was a 1-year assignment. Vietnam was the Vietnam War at that point. So he went to the Vietnam War, and my mother and us 5 kids moved back to Belton, Texas, for the same reason we moved there in the first place. My grandmother lived there. My grandfather had passed away, but my grandmother was still there, my mom's mother. So we moved back to Belton, and that's where I went to the 9th grade. After the 9th grade, my dad's 1 year in Vietnam ended, and he got assigned to Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. So at the end of 9th grade, we picked up and moved to Hawaii, where I went to the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. My high school was Leilahua High School. Leilahua. I'll spell that for you later if you want me to.
Okay.
In the town of Wahiawa, which is right next to Schofield Barracks, which is a big army post just outside of Honolulu. So all the way through 12th grade, we were in Hawaii.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that seems to, let me see if I've got any more on here. Okay, I think that as I scroll through, I'm kind of reading through the last of these questions from StoryCorps, and I feel like a lot of them he's answered because he gave us so much information whenever he answered the first 3. So I'm just kind of scrolling through as I look through and letting my person I'm interviewing have a little rest break. But I think that I've got enough information to really capture the childhood section that I'm going to be writing about. And then I'm going to come back over the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to interview him a second time about his middle life. And then I'm going to interview him a third time about what his life is like now. So, okay. So now that I've got my notes, I'm going to spend the rest of my day kind of going through my notes and getting them organized. And then tomorrow I'm going to start thinking about what project that I'm going to want to do, and we'll talk more about that next time.